Electric Heartstrings by Lisa Swinton. Narrated by Lisa Swinton. Chapter 1. Aurora took a deep breath and looked at the waterfalls streaming down the mountainsides. She ran her hands across the lanai railing and counted falls. 13. The daily rain shower had added a few to the usual number. A flicker of movement caught her eye. A lizard skittered across the boards by her feet and headed for the wall. She smiled. At least on Kauai, the wildlife wasn't out to kill her, unlike back in her native Australia. She rubbed an itch on the back of her neck and checked the time. Go time. With a quick coat of lip gloss, she was out the door, her skirt swishing around her legs. She made it down the open stairwell, taking in the view of the resort, and headed for the courtyard by the beach. The white sand glistened in the early evening sun. Sunset was about to start, but the sky hadn't turned colors yet. Aurora inhaled and caught the scent of a nearby bird of paradise mixed with bromeliad. Hawaii had it all. She'd live here if she could. Aurora! She turned her head toward the call. A striking woman with fire engine red hair waved at her and fought her way through the gathering crowd. Lindsay! Aurora bumped her way toward her friend and hugged her when they met. You shouldn't hide out down under so long, Lindsay said, stepping back to look at her. You look good, girlfriend. Aurora laughed. So do you. It's a shame we don't get together more often. Lindsay arched a penciled brow. Girl, I'm only an airplane ride away. I've been on tour. Aurora hooked her arm through Lindsay's. But I couldn't miss the Sweethearts Music Festival. Especially when it's in Hawaii. She shook. The bangles on her arm made a tinkling sound. On the Garden Island, no less. Aurora sighed. I'd live here in paradise, but it's too far from my family. Lindsay rolled her eyes. When you tour as much as we do, the world is your home, and family is never far away. True. Aurora adjusted the strap of her tank top and searched the crowd for familiar faces. Are you ready to hula? Lindsay asked, pulling them toward a staff member handing out grass skirts. They each took one and tied them around her waist. Yes, I think this was a fabulous opening mixer idea, Aurora said. Me too. When's your first performance? 2 days. Aurora thought it was cool that the performances were taking place at venues all over the island. And while a bigger island like Oahu, with more sightseeing options, would have made more sense to accommodate large crowds, she was happy the organizers had chosen Kauai instead. The island had a more intimate feel. The women headed to one of the lines forming on the beach in front of the bandstand, waving at and hugging other musicians along the way. As they stepped into a line, Lindsay asked, Who do you keep looking for? Trevor hired a new cellist, Carter. I'm not sure if he knows anyone here. I wanted to keep an eye on him, introduce him. I thought you were looking for Trevor. When am I not looking for Trevor? You're still hung up on him, Lindsay said. I know I need to move on. I just can't. You need to fire him. Lindsay bumped her hip into hers. Then you can date him. She smirked. I can't fire him. He's the best manager I've ever had. Besides, if I do, he'll be too busy managing someone else's career to have time to date me. At least this way, I see him all the time. Girl, you're a glutton for punishment. Aurora sighed. Tell me about it. Can't live with him, can't live without him. Lindsay patted her arm. It's a tough place to be. Yeah, well, I don't know how much longer I can stand it. Something's got to give. Aurora searched the crowd again for Carter. A familiar laugh reached her ears, and she froze. Slowly, she turned her head toward Lindsay. Tell me you didn't hear that. Oh, I did. She jerked a thumb in the direction of a woman a few rows over. Callie Daniels, Aurora hissed. She felt her blood pressure spike, and her eyes narrowed. That woman ruined my life. Lindsay nodded. Pretty much. Carly tossed her caramel waves over her shoulder and laughed at what some over-muscled guy said to her, batting her false lashes in the process. Aurora's jaw twitched. Should I get a ring set up and you two can go at it? Lindsay offered. Oh, I don't need a ring. I don't plan to fight fair. Aurora clenched and unclenched her fists. Carly turned her head and fluttered her manicured fingernails at Aurora. Her shoulders rose, and she set off to march over to Carly when the feedback of the microphone caught her attention. Welcome to the Sweethearts Music Festival opening mixer, a man boomed. The crowd erupted in cheers, cutting Aurora's eye contact with Carly. She stepped back into place beside Lindsay. There's a yummy piece of eye candy staring at you, Lindsay said. Is that your new cellist? Aurora followed Lindsay's line of sight. That's him. She waved Carter over. If Trevor can't get past his promise, then you should totally move on to Carter. She smoothed the fiery lock of hair across her head. And hurry up and decide, because if you don't want him, then I'll totally take him. Mm-mm. Aurora couldn't help the grin that spread across her face. She loved Lindsay. She was the best. Hi, Carter. Glad you made it. Thanks. I'd never found you in this crowd if it weren't for Trevor. He nodded behind him. Aurora looked over his shoulder and her heart flipped as it always did when she set eyes on her manager. This is Lindsay. Hey. Carter shook Lindsay's hand. What do you play? Come tomorrow and find out. Lindsay swayed her hips. He looked to Aurora for guidance. We'll be there. Of course we will. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Aurora positioned Carter between herself and Lindsay, knowing her friend would talk across her otherwise. Aurora turned her focus to the stage, where directions were being given. Hawaiian music flowed through the speakers, and she swayed her hips and moved her hands in rhythm with the dancers on stage. She didn't have to look around to know where Trevor was. She had a sixth sense when it came to knowing. It was as if he was the sun and she was a planet, orbiting, but never touching. If it wasn't for that one kiss, she could move on, let go. But that kiss, even thinking about it sent butterflies racing through her stomach and made the hair on her arms stand on end. It was even better than playing her electric violin. Aurora let her gaze wander over the crowd while she worked through the moves. Clearly playing an instrument or singing was different from dancing. Few had the gracefulness to do both at the same time. When the demonstration wrapped up, Carter said, I don't understand how you can play the electric violin and dance at the same time and not fall over or mess up notes. It does help that lots of my music and choreography are original compositions. Yeah, but still. He ran a hand through his blonde hair. I'm happy to be seated. I hardly think you could dance and play the cello at the same time. Aurora centered her grass skirt. Yeah, that would be pretty impossible, he agreed. I'm thirsty, Lindsay declared. Let's get some food and a drink and then we can watch the show. The trio waded through the crowd to the spread of food at tables opposite the stage and then settled on the sand with plates balanced on their laps. Hawaiian music is so beautiful, Lindsay said. I might have to find a way to play it my style. That I would love to see, Aurora said. I still don't know what you play, Carter said to Lindsay. She's a marimbering percussionist player, Aurora answered. Lindsay sniffed. You make it sound so inelegant. No one can do what you do, Aurora said. No one would try. You're truly unique. Lindsay beamed. That's more like it. Carter looked between the women. I still don't get it? While Lindsay explained the intricacies of her performance style, Aurora tuned them out and let her gaze wander. She spotted several friends in the crowd and made a mental note to speak to them. Part of the fun of the festival was connecting with old friends and making new contacts. She'd made some highly successful collaborations from previous festivals and learned which people to steer clear of. Her eyes invariably settled on Trevor, as if drawn to him by a secret homing beacon. Her stomach clenched tight as she watched Carly approach him, like a cheetah on the prowl having located its target. Aurora gripped her water bottle tight. Carly greeted him and leaned in to kiss Trevor on the cheek. A blush swept his cheeks, and he stepped back. Carly filled in the gap, laughed, and ran her long red fingernails down his arm. Aurora was gratified to see Trevor looking uncomfortable, though his networking face remained in place. How he could keep so calm in the presence of his former client was beyond her. She wanted to scratch Carly's eyes out on Trevor's behalf. Her water bottle exploded and soaked her arm. She dropped the bottle. Hey! Carter scooted away. What gives? He looked closer at her with his green eyes. Are you okay? I'm fine. He frowned and looked where she'd been staring. Is there something going on between you and Trevor? Aurora snorted. Hardly. He thought for a moment. Then why are you looking so murderous to the woman he's talking to? That's Carly Daniels, Aurora said, bitterness coating her tongue. You're new to the music scene, and as a friend, I'm warning you to stay clear of her. She's the reason Aurora and Trevor aren't together, Lindsay said. I don't follow, he said. Aurora sighed. You might as well know. Trevor was Carly's manager before he was mine. They dated, they broke up. She destroyed him in the gossip papers, and his company decided he should leave the United States. He came to Australia to manage me. And? He asked. And from that point on, Trevor vowed never to date his clients again, Lindsay said. Oh, Carter said. Oh. His eyes widened. I see. You like him and want to date him, and you hate Carly because she's the reason you can't. Bingo! Lindsay gave him a high five. Does he like you? Carter asked Aurora. What do you think? She flung back and scratched an insect bite on her leg. I may be new to your team, but I'd say he's got a thing for you, he said. Everyone sees it, Lindsay agreed. You need to do something. Take a risk. It's impossible. She scowled at the back of Carly's head. That infernal woman was still chatting Trevor up. Couldn't she go harass someone else? Do you have the same rule as Trevor? Carter asked. No, Aurora said. Why? Are you dating anyone? He asked. No. Where are you going with these? Have you been on dates since Trevor became your manager? What, 2 years ago? Aurora shifted in the sand. I haven't dated in the past year. She rolled her shoulders. You're asking some pretty personal questions. Is Trevor the jealous type? He pressed. Aurora frowned and popped a piece of pineapple in her mouth. I'm not sure. He didn't like it much when I dated before because he said it distracted me from work. To be honest, he hadn't been keen on any guys she dated. Carter nodded. I've got an idea, and I think if we work together, he pointed to the three of them, we might be able to bring Trevor over to the dark side. He grinned. Lindsay leaned forward. I'm in. Hope fluttered in Aurora's heart. She would do just about anything to feel Trevor's lips against hers again. Spiel. Chapter 2. Trevor tried to keep the muscle in his jaw from working overtime as he folded and refolded the schedule in his hand. This festival wasn't going according to plan. There were too many variables and loose cannons, and unwelcome surprises. He rubbed his forearm where Carly had run her fingernails 2 days ago. His skin still crawled at the memory of her touch. Had he realized she'd be at the festival, he'd have tried to talk Aurora into declining the invitation, or he'd have backed out. That last part wasn't true. He'd never be unprofessional enough to do that. He couldn't leave Aurora. She consumed his thoughts even on vacation, which is why he hadn't bothered to take one in a long time. She was with him even when she wasn't. He might as well be where he could see her all the time. He wandered the seating area, checking the vantage points while Aurora whirled and played her blue electric violin. She was a blur of color and sound. Amazing. Utterly amazing. The rapturous expression on her face drove him wild. Her expression was of fierce intensity and concentration, yet she looked sublimely serene at the same time. He never tired of watching her. There was something incredibly captivating about her, both on stage and off. He slapped the folded paper against his palm, crushing it before smoothing it again. If it weren't for that kiss. His scalp tingled from the memory of her running her fingers through his dark hair. His lips ached for the feel of hers pressed to his. Trevor took a deep breath and released it slowly. He couldn't break his promise, no matter how much his heart said otherwise. Aurora bowed and Trevor clapped. She smiled at him and his heart lifted. She had a killer smile. Must not think about her lips. Any notes, boss? She shaded her eyes with a hand. The bridge seemed off. Let me check with Larry. He stepped over to the soundboard. I think one of the pedals is stuck or out of tune, Larry said. I'll take a look at it and have it ready for the performance tonight. Can you take a look at it now? Trevor asked. She uses the pedals in the last number. Give me 5 minutes and I can tell you if it's a quick fix or not. Trevor nodded and called 5 to the band. Carter made a beeline for Aurora. Trevor frowned. He wasn't sure what was happening there yet, if anything. Aurora was always friendly and welcoming to the crew. Kindness went a long way in smoothing professional roads. Trevor knew she and Carter had spent most of the evening together at the opening mixer, and last night she'd taken him to Lindsay's performance. Was there more than friendly professionalism going on? Should he poke his nose in? The level-headed part of him said to let the situation be. Aurora hadn't made the promise he had. She was free to date anyone she wanted. And yet, the green-eyed, jealous monster clinging to his back said otherwise. He shook his shoulders as if that would release the monster. No luck. He'd simply have to keep his opinions to himself. Larry returned. The pedals should work for her last song, but I'll give them a thorough once-over and testing before the performance tonight. Sounds good. Trevor clapped a hand on Larry's shoulder. Thanks. He called to the band on stage. Last number. Everyone took places, and after Aurora checked her violin, they were off. Trevor took a seat and watched. The number was a slow one with Aurora as solo. She used the pedals to add tones and harmonies to the piece, a slow build that eventually bubbled over into passion. As the song progressed, the other instruments joined one at a time, and then she was off, whirling with her skirts swishing around her legs. Those legs, lean, toned, and tan. They looked smashing in heels, but could be every bit as deadly when she was barefoot. Often, by this point in the program, she was without shoes, and the audience would have eaten whipped cream off her feet with delight. Trevor looked down at his hands to discover he'd shredded the schedule to bits. Aurora was invading his brain and heart more each day. He wasn't sure how much longer he could continue. Being with her was agony. Being without her was torture. He forced his head back up to watch. She ended with a flourish. The last note of her electric violin echoed over the other instruments. A few bystanders clapped along with the crew. Aurora took a grand curtsy. Everyone went to stow their instruments. Trevor was steps from Aurora when Carter beat him there. He leaned in and whispered something to her. She giggled and snapped her case shut. Then he took her hand and kissed the back of it. Trevor expected him to drop her hand or for Aurora to break contact, but neither one did. They turned around. "How was it, Trevor?" Aurora asked with a nervous smile. He couldn't stop staring at their joined hands. "I'm fine, just fine." He tore his gaze away and looked at Carter. "How are you settling in?" he asked him. Carter joined their team a week before the festival. He came highly recommended, and after a quick audition, Trevor hired him on the spot. Carter was young, well qualified, and already knew most of Aurora's music by heart. Trevor worried that he was rash in his decision if Carter had designs on Aurora. Carter's expression was all confidence. "I'm doing great. She's a marvelous musician. She makes me feel right at home." He swung their hands, drawing Trevor's gaze. "Yes, she is," Trevor agreed around the lump in his throat. "Aurora, a quick word, please, and then we can go to lunch." "I'm having lunch with Carter," she said. "One of the locals recommended a place down the road. It's authentic Hawaiian cuisine, and there's a shave ice stand by it, too. I'm dying to try some." "Wonderful." Trevor knew his smile was tight. He could feel the muscles in his face freezing up from the tension. Trevor pulled her out of earshot. "Did you have any notes you need to give me?" she asked. She stood close enough that Trevor could inhale her scent. She smelled like pineapple and coconut today. She was always changing up her body spray to suit the environment or her mood. Here she was tropical scented, sending Trevor's brain into daydreams of lounging on the beach with her in a swimsuit. He'd seen her in bikinis before, but the blue one was his favorite. Not that he should have a favorite. "Are you dating Carter?" The question tumbled from his lips, spiked with anger and jealousy. She frowned at him, crossed her arms, and took a half step back. "That's a no to the notes. As for your question, I don't have to answer it. My personal life is that. Personal. And you have no right to intrude there. But if you date him, it could cause problems later if things don't work out between you. It's not good to cross professional barriers." "I didn't make the same promises you did." She closed the gap between them. "I can date who I want, when I want. Just because you got banned doesn't mean I will. But it's dangerous. Things will be awkward after you break up. Awkward enough that he could quit, or you'd have me fire him. Then we have to replace him and break in a new cellist." "You could always play," she shot back. "You could have filled in any number of times when we were in a tight spot. You know the music as well as I do, but you won't. Another one of your stupid vows." Even in the heat of the argument, Trevor couldn't help notice that she was deliciously sexy when she was angry. The pout of her lip, the sparks dancing in her eyes. He wanted nothing more than to take her in his arms and kiss her senseless, throw out his rule to guard his heart and job. He swallowed, which was a mistake, because he could taste her scent on his tongue. "I don't want to see you get hurt." He ran a hand through his hair. "Because I'll be affected. My performance will suffer. Or I'll be distracted by grief, blah, blah, blah." She dropped her arms. Her hands curled tightly at her sides, setting off the muscle tone of her willowy arms. "Well, guess what, Trevor? We can get hurt at any time by anyone. You're hurting me right now by treating me like a child, instead of like a woman who knows her own mind." "Aurora." He reached for her arm, but she batted it away. "I know you mean well, Trevor, but like I said, my personal life is my business." She stomped toward Carter, took his hand, tossed her hair over her shoulder, and shot him a look that made his knees tremble. He watched them walk away hand in hand and mentally cursed himself. That scenario couldn't have gone any worse. He should have kept his mouth shut. Warning Aurora off was the last thing he should have done, because it was exactly what would drive her into Carter's arms. Chapter 3. On her lanai, Aurora dialed Jack's number. "Come on, pick up." Jack's face filled the screen. "Hi, sis. How's paradise?" "Good." She adjusted the strap on her tank top and took a sip of water. "Good." He raised a brow. "Why don't I believe you?" She ran the condensation on the glass in her fingers. "I did something kind of stupid, and I'm not sure if it's going to work or backfire on me." She shut her eyes. "Is the former king of stupid? I'd like to be the judge. What did you do?" After checking that the lanais on either side of her were empty, she settled into the lounge chair. "I'm in a fake relationship?" She gave a half smile. "You what?" The words tumbled out. "There's this new cellist in my band, Carter. We hired him a week before the festival, and he's worked really hard to get up to par and everything. He's good looking, and my friend Lindsay was hitting on him hard. I think they make a cute couple. Anyway, he's super talented and super gorgeous in that Hemsworth kind of way, and I'd be totally into him if I wasn't hung up on Trevor. But on opening night of the festival, Carter noticed I'm mad for Trevor, and he thinks Trevor's mad for me, and Carly Daniels is here, and I think she's trying to get back together with Trevor, which he'd never do, but we're in paradise. What if he gets lonely and goes for it, since we can't be together?" So Carter came up with this plan to make Trevor jealous so he'll reveal his true feelings for me. And now Carter and I are fake dating, and I think it's working because Trevor told me off yesterday for dating Carter, and I told him it wasn't any of his business. But now I'm worried that if I make him too jealous, he'll run right into Carly's arms, and I can't stand not being with him too much longer. She sucked in a deep breath. Jack stared at her. "What?" she asked. He held a hand up. "Hold on. There was a lot of info you threw at me at top speed. Give me a minute to catch up." Aurora waited on pins and needles. "Jack, you've done this sort of thing before. Tell me what to do." He closed his eyes and shook his head. "This is a dangerous game you're playing. I would have advised against it. It's unkind to toy with people's emotions." Aurora hung her head. "I know." Tears pricked at her eyes, and she looked up. "But I'm so desperate, Jack." She rested a hand on her heart. "It hurts so much in here." He sighed. "I know." He shook his head. "Since you've already started the ball rolling, you have two choices. Play it out, or tell Trevor how you feel about him." "He'll quit." "That's a risk you'll have to take." He gave her a sympathetic look. "I can't lose him, Jack." He gave a wry smile. "And do you think winning him dishonestly is justified?" "I should never have sent you to that therapist. I need rogue Jack, not morally centered Jack." "Too late, and I regret nothing about straightening out my life. That choice brought me to Giada, but right now, we need to straighten out yours. What level are you at with Carter? Hand-holding?" She opened and flexed her free hand. "To be honest, it feels good to hold hands with someone. Kissing?" "No." He narrowed his eyes. "Not even on the cheek?" She shook her head. "No. I've only known him a week and a half. If we were dating for real, I wouldn't be beyond that level." Jack scrubbed a hand over his jaw. "Have you talked through the boundaries of your fake relationship?" No." A little flutter of nerves rose in her abdomen. Jack gave her a hard look. "You need to be on the same page. He might be willing to go all the way to make Trevor jealous, but you, little sister, aren't." "How do you know?" She glared at him. "Because you and I both know if you did that, Trevor wouldn't touch you again. And you don't want to part with that until it's the right man and with a ring on your finger. I remember all the wedding chatter you spilled when we were young, and I remember what Mum and Dad told us. I may have strayed from the path, but I'll bet you haven't, and I don't want you to." She nodded, overcome with gratitude for his protection. "Thanks, Jack. Like I said, be on the same page. If he crosses lines, I'll be on the next plane to punch him in the face." A genuine smile formed. "Thanks, Wonder Boy. You're the best. Give Jada my love." "I will." His expression turned serious. Be careful. Yes, sir. She mock saluted. I'm serious. I know. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Keep me updated. It's sink or swim, win or lose. I hope you win. She blew him a kiss and hung up. She tapped the phone on her knee and looked out over the lush greenery to the mountainside across the lagoon. Only 10 waterfalls. That meant they were due for another rain shower. She headed in to put on her swimsuit. Next on the Make Trevor Jealous list was beach and snorkel time, right after she and Carter got on the same page. Chapter 4. Trevor did a quick head count. The group was assembled, or would be when Aurora and Carter hand in hand finished strolling up to them. He refrained from scowling, but barely. As Aurora said, it wasn't his business who she dated. A light breeze fluttered her cover-up, giving a preview of her blue bikini. Heaven help him. When she wore that, he was putty in her hands. Today, she'd be putty in Carter's hands. Trevor swallowed around the lump in his throat. He was straining to be civil. Carter was an excellent musician. Trevor mustn't let his personal feelings cloud his judgment. "We're here, Captain," he said to the man on his left. "Welcome. I'm Tolly, your captain and guide for snorkeling today. Let me introduce my crew and go over the rules." Trevor only half listened for the next few minutes, his concentration divided between the instructions and keeping his focus off Aurora and Carter, which was almost impossible, especially when Carter leaned in to whisper in her ear and he watched a shiver run through Aurora. He clenched his jaw as Carter wrapped an arm around her waist and she giggled, pushing playfully at his chest. He'd swap places with Carter in a heartbeat to have Aurora touch and look at him that way. The group boarded the boat and 15 minutes later parked at a reef. Trevor watched as Aurora removed her cover-up, sporting the blue bikini that did crazy things to his insides. He grit his teeth when Carter placed his hand on the small of her back to help her enter the water. Aurora came up with a huge grin on her face. She laughed at whatever Carter said and gave him a splash. They donned their snorkels, treading water. "Are you coming?" Lula asked, scooping up her snorkel gear. "Yeah." Trevor grabbed his equipment. Lula gave him a concerned look. "Are you okay? You don't look good. Did you get seasick?" They scooted to the back of the boat. "I'm fine." She cocked her head. "Well, if you murder Carter in the water, try to make it look like an accident. Right now I'd have to testify to your intent with premeditation, or whatever they call it." Trevor rolled his shoulders, trying to work off the tension. "Is it that obvious?" "Yes," she confirmed. "Try to have some fun while we're out here, boss." And she jumped in the water. "Fun. Yeah, right," he grumbled before following her. The warm ocean swallowed him up, and he floated to the surface. Tolly gave a few instructions, and then they donned their mouthpieces and followed after him. Every so often, he'd motion for the group to come up, and he'd tell them about the aquatic life. Trevor took comfort that while they were under the water, Aurora and Carter couldn't converse. But then his thoughts strayed to other ways they could avoid conversation, and his blood heated. He was losing his grip, mentally and emotionally, about Aurora. He needed to get control. "Still looking like you want to clobber Carter," Lula said. "Why are you so grumpy about him? You hired him." She squeezed out the chestnut tresses of her ponytail. "He's a fine musician." Trevor sighed. She studied him a moment. Lula'd been with Aurora longer than Trevor. "This is your fault, you know," she said. "My fault?" He sputtered. "If you would admit your feelings to Aurora and see where they lead, you'd both be a lot happier." "What are you talking about? What feelings?" The temperature of the ocean seemed to have gone from pleasantly warm to boiling in a heartbeat. She rolled her eyes. "Please, Trevor. We all know. It's completely obvious." Trevor's shoulders tensed. Apparently he wasn't as good at hiding his feelings as he thought. "And you're driving each other and the rest of us crazy by skirting the topic," she said. "If you're not willing to admit to or act on your feelings, don't take out your frustration on Carter. He's a good-looking man showing interest in Aurora. She deserves to be happy. If you won't make her happy, then don't begrudge her finding happiness elsewhere." She put her snorkel in her mouth and her face in the water. Trevor followed suit. He attempted to enjoy the serenity and peace the rich aquatic life offered, but failed. He mulled Lula's words over. If everyone was aware of the unspoken connection between him and Aurora, then what was holding him back? Fear. fear that it would all go down bad and ugly as it had with Carly. The move to Australia had brought Aurora into his life. He wouldn't trade that for the world. But were his choices and actions fair to her? He wanted to date her, but that was impossible when she was his client. He could quit, and then he could date her. Problem was that managing a performer was a full-time gig, which left little room for personal life, much less a long-distance one. He watched a fish swim by, carefree. No need to juggle the morals and ethics of its life decisions. Simplicity. A home. Food. A companion and a few little fishes, and its life was completely fulfilled. Did fish even know about companionships? At Tolly's signal he surfaced, resolved to do right by Aurora and give her the happiness she deserved. With Carter or whomever she chose, he cared too much for her to stand between her and the life he wasn't willing to give her. After the festival, he'd give his notice and let her go. Chapter 5. Aurora couldn't deny that Carter was good company as he handed her a fruity drink on the beach. She took a sip and asked, "How are we looking so far?" Carter dropped into the chair next to her and raised his shades a fraction. "I think we're on track. He looked like he wanted to murder me during snorkeling." "Really?" She leaned in. "Yeah, I overheard Lula talking to him. I think the plan is working. You certainly knew what you were doing by wearing that suit." He waved at her bikini. She smirked. "Trevor's seen me in bikinis before, but there's something about this one that gets under his skin. I've seen it in his eyes." He gave her an appreciative look that wasn't smarmy. "I can see why." She bit her bottom lip. "You need to tell me if you're starting to develop anything more than friendship, because then we need to call this insane plan off immediately. Do you promise?" He took her hand and kissed the back of it. "I promise." "He's watching, isn't he?" She could feel Trevor's gaze boring into her back. "Yep." "Scowling?" she hoped. Carter gave the slightest headshake. "Nope, not jealous, I don't think. More like resigned." "Resigned? That won't work. I can't get him to confess his feelings if he isn't crazy jealous monster or drunk or both. And even then, I don't know if it'll work." She fiddled with the end of her hair. "What'll we do?" He kissed her hand again. "I think you need more sunscreen. Let's start with your back. Face him while I apply, and look like you're enjoying yourself." She nodded, swiveled around in her chair, and handed Carter the sunscreen. She briefly locked eyes with Trevor before closing hers. Carter's touch was magical, and she felt herself relaxing as he rubbed in the lotion. And then one of her strops dropped onto her shoulder. "Carter?" she asked out of the side of her mouth. "What's going on?" He whispered in her ear. "I'm going to kiss your skin," he warned her. She gulped, and nervous flutters started in her abdomen. He dropped a kiss on her shoulder before rubbing in the lotion. Aurora tipped her head up to the sun. It had been a long time since a guy kissed her anywhere or applied sunscreen. She couldn't deny her reaction. She closed her eyes and imagined Trevor was applying the lotion. The corners of her mouth raised as Carter kissed her other shoulder. She exhaled a deeply contented sigh. Carter chuckled and then whispered, "It's a good thing I know what an awesome performer you are. I'd be tempted to think I had something to do with that sound." His words were the cooling effect Aurora needed to put her head on straight. Her relationship with Carter was for show, to get Trevor so jealous that he couldn't see straight and would declare his undying love for her. She mentally shrugged a shoulder. Okay, undying love was a fantasy. She'd taken, "I like you," and a mind-blowing kiss. Undying devotion could come later. "How's he look?" she asked without turning around. Trevor crushed the soda can in his hand. He kissed her cheek. "Do you want me to do the front? That might send him over the edge." She shook her head and a genuine smile formed. "I think there might be overkill." She took the sunscreen bottle from Carter. "As you wish." He leaned back against the lounge chair and clasped his hands behind his head. Aurora couldn't deny that Carter was good-looking. He had killer green eyes and a nicely chiseled body to boot. If she'd met him before Trevor, or even before kissing Trevor, she would have given him a go. Relationships were all about timing. Timing seemed to be against her in that department. "What's the deal with Lindsay?" Carter asked. "Is she seeing anyone?" Aurora grinned. "Asking about the gal's friend when you're fake dating her should be against the rules, don't you think?" He smirked back. That's only bad manners if you're dating for real and asking about the friend. Since you and I are on the up and up, I figured, why not? Fair enough. She liked Carter. He was straightforward and honest. In a way, he reminded her of her brother Jack, at least since he'd met Giada and changed. She was looking forward to their wedding. She wondered when it would be her turn to walk down the aisle. Not that Jack and Giada's path had been smooth, nor had hers and Trevor's. Earth to Aurora? Carter waved his hand in front of her face. Sorry? She cleared her throat and settled into her chair. Carter took her hand, playing with her fingers. Lindsay is between relationships at the moment, Aurora said. She's single. When was the last breakup? Carter surveyed the water. A few months ago. She's due for a new guy. Aurora wiggled her eyebrows at Carter. I take it you're interested? He nodded. Well, I won't stand in your way. Aurora took a sip of her drink. I like Lindsay, and I like you. I think you two would make a good pair. Thanks. I think she's way cool. Aurora giggled. Why cool? Isn't it something 15-year-olds say? He lowered his sunglasses to look over the top rims at her. Are you questioning my word choice? They're pretty juvenile. He rose, tossing his shades onto his chair. That's it. He scooped her up, popped her over his shoulder, and headed for the water. Laughing, she pounded on his back. Carter, put me down. He marched straight into the cool blue waters of Kauai and tossed her in. She came up, and he dove in after her, shouting, Sharks and minnows. Ah! She raced away, cutting through the water, but Carter was faster. He picked her up again and dipped her under. She swept the water from her eyes. I take it I'm the minnow? Yep, he grinned. And you're the shark? Undoubtedly. He's still watching, isn't he? Aurora asked as the wave passed. Arms crossed and practically snarling on the sand. Eyes narrowed? Yes, lean back and float to give him the full view. I'll keep my arms under you, he said. Trevor looks like he's going to plunge out here and snatch you from me. Aurora thrilled at the news and did as she was told, keeping in mind that Carter was getting the close-up view. He lowered her into the water so his head was above her belly. She closed her eyes against the glare of the Hawaiian sun. What do they put in the water here? She asked. I know it's the same Pacific Ocean at home, but this is better. Aurora, we're about to have a visitor. He's taking the bait. He scooped her up to a vertical position so they were chest to chest. Wrap your legs around my waist, he said. She did. He spun around. Tip your head back and laugh. She followed his command. Hands ripped her away from Carter. She stumbled, trying to get her footing on the shifting sand and waves. Trevor? She gasped. Could I talk to you for a minute? He gave a scathing glare at Carter and, without waiting for an answer, hauled her out of the water, gripping her arm tight. Ow, Trevor, you're hurting me. Out of the water, he let go. She stumbled into him, holding her wrist and rubbing the skin. What was that all about? She asked. Anger was etched over his handsome face only inches away. She wanted to brush the hair out of his eyes, but refrained. You're making a spectacle of yourself, he hissed. First the lotion, now the water. She crossed her arms over her chest and narrowed her eyes. Carter and I are having fun, she defended. You should try it sometime and get that big chip off your shoulder. She brushed her hand across his shoulder, using a bit more force than necessary. He caught her hand and held it between them. Aurora couldn't ignore the tingles racing up her arm, around her torso, and plunging to her toes. She hoped he'd never let go. I don't have a chip on my shoulder. He scowled at her. You're right, she said. It's the size of Australia. When was the last time you cut loose and did something out of the ordinary? There were only inches between them, but he closed the space. She felt his breath against her face. You know when? You were there. His voice was husky. His chest heaved with emotion, and Aurora knew hers did too. She clung to the words that indicated he'd thought about that night and the moment they'd shared. The greatest moment of their relationship. And the next day he backpedaled and apologized when what she wanted was to hear him say being with her was more important than a personal vow he made before they met. A metallic taste filled Aurora's mouth. How could he cradle her heart in his hand in one moment and crush it in the next? He was so close she could kiss him with the tiniest movement, but he needed to be the one to initiate. Then she'd know he'd checked that stupid promise. Yes, I was there, and the next day too. She couldn't hide the hurt in her voice. If you don't want to have fun, fine, but don't keep me from it. She stepped back. Since seeing Carter and me together obviously annoys you, would you like us to go somewhere private? One of our rooms, perhaps? She quirked an eyebrow. The color faded from Trevor's face. I'm simply concerned that you and Carter might be photographed. She pasted on a fake smile. I'm sure any photos can be handled by my capable manager and publicist. He frowned at her. She turned and beckoned to Carter with a finger. He strode from the waves and she took his hand. Carter, Trevor thinks we're attracting too much attention. Let's go back to my room. Love to, babe. He winked at Trevor and picked her up to cradle her in his arms. Trevor's hands clenched in a fist and his cheeks turned scarlet. Aurora wrapped her hands around Carter's neck. Trevor, please have our belongings sent up to my room. She waved at him as Carter walked toward the hotel. You were brilliant, Carter said once they were out of earshot. You weren't so bad yourself, she said. He'll definitely crack before the end of the festival. I hope so, Carter, because otherwise I'm going to have to fire him. Chapter 6. Aurora played her electric violin to the track running in the background. Her fingers ached along with everything else. Making videos was exhausting. Cut, called Steve, the director. Aurora lowered her violin and crew members swapped it for a bottle of water. Thanks, Aurora said. Sweat beaded her forehead, but she couldn't brush it off. Her makeup had been done 3 times. Carter handed her a towel. Sound good, and look even better. He nodded appreciatively at her outfit. Thanks. She dabbed at the sweat. Wardrobe had her in a miniskirt with a train made of tutu material. Bright tights and ankle boots covered the rest of her lower half, while her top half sported a baby tee under a leather vest. Her hair had bubblegum pink extensions with beads mixed into her white blonde hair. Makeup was kept light to let her striking blue eyes take center stage. Do you have another costume change? He took the towel and handed her a packet of cashews, her favorite. Yes. She popped some nuts into her mouth, letting the crunchy butteriness play on her tongue. Carter slid an arm around her waist. All set for the big finale after the shoot? He whispered in her ear. Her gaze slid to Trevor, who frowned at them. Yes, I think so. Well, he's as primed and ready as we can make him. If he doesn't confess at the waterfall, throw him over it. She couldn't stop the laugh that escaped her lips. What if he throws me? I'll bet he's gallant enough to jump in and save you. Aurora, Trevor called. Wardrobe. He gestured to the screened area. Nothing like PVC and black curtains on location to make a girl feel glamorous, Aurora said to Carter. If people only knew what reality was like for a YouTube music star, they'd all realize how insane it is to aspire to be one. Well, you make it look easy. Carter nuzzled her neck, and she pushed playfully against his chest. Aurora. Trevor pointed to his watch. She frowned at Trevor as she passed through the curtain. After makeup and wardrobe worked their magic, she stepped onto the set. They were high up in the Waimea Canyon overlooking the ocean. The lush green vegetation created the perfect backdrop for her video. The crew went silent at her appearance. She took a fortifying breath and a quick glance at Carter, who winked, before focusing her gaze on Trevor. His jaw was slack. She approached him, dressed in white, almost bridal, to create the desired effect. Maybe a strong hint would push him over the edge. How do I look? She asked him. His mouth opened and shut twice, but no sound came out. Speechless. She'd rendered him utterly speechless. She shut down the joyous smile trying to come out. That bad, huh? I'll have to have wardrobe find something else. She turned toward the curtain, but his hand caught her wrist. She felt the tremble run up her arm and through her body. Only Trevor could do that to her. She rotated slowly to face him and worked to keep her breathing even. She waited, her eyes searching his. You look... He stopped, exhaled, and tried again. You look, ready. She stared at him, disappointment running through her like ice. Wow, thanks. She gathered her instrument and took her spot. The low hum of voices resumed, complemented by the sounds of nature. She forced down the tears burning at the back of her eyes. She sniffed and took a steadying breath. Apparently her plan wasn't working. Carter wrapped an arm around her bare shoulders, careful not to bump her instrument. It's okay. He kissed her temple. You planted the idea. I saw it. That's why he's reeling and sounding like an idiot. Oh, I think maybe we should just can the whole thing. He's never going to say he loves me. For what it's worth, I think he'll make a beautiful bride. She looked down at the white bustier and the silky skirt that let her toes peep out. She touched the tiara on her head. These isn't the dress I'd choose, she said. Maybe not, but he'd walk down the aisle with you in a burlap sack. I'm sure of it. Thanks, Kata. You're wrong, but thanks. Don't give up hope yet. She nodded and took her place. She used the time the crew needed to adjust the lighting and screens to get her emotions under control. She might be a mess on the inside, but that's when her training took over, and she let the music carry her to the performance the piece deserved. When the track ended, the director yelled, "Cut!" Aurora lowered her bow, emotionally exhausted. That was when she realized she'd played the piece straight through with no stops. She cocked her head at the director. "What parts do I need to do again?" He shook his head and grasped her shoulders. "None. Absolutely none." "But what about camera angles and different backgrounds and stuff?" "That was perfect take, Aurora. Even the mist part did while you played, so we got the ocean shot just as you hit the bridge." "No, you couldn't be. No one uses the footage from the first take without feeling bits from the subsequent ones." She knew this from experience. He chuckled. "Every once in a while, a perfect take comes along. This was one of them." He dropped his hands and clapped. And then everyone clapped. Aurora felt her cheeks warm and knew the color matched the pink streaks in her hair. Trevor approached. "Trevor?" she asked. "He's right. A perfect take." He turned to the crew. "That's a wrap, everyone. Pack it up." There was a scramble of activity. Wardrobe had Aurora dressed in her own clothes in a flash. Since they'd finished early, the crew could catch the acts performing tonight. Carter said, "I'm getting a ride in Lula's car. I'll meet you back at the hotel." "Kai?" He kissed her on the cheek and winked. "You got this," he whispered, and then headed for the cars. Aurora knew Trevor would be the last to leave, making sure all was tidy and nothing was left behind. When it was just the two of them, Aurora said, "I'm going for a hike." Trevor turned, looking startled to find her there and alone with him. "I thought you left with Carter." "No, I want to do this hike. All the guidebooks say it's not to be missed. It won't take long." Trevor looked at the sky. "Shouldn't hike alone." "Then come with me." Aurora held her breath. Since their drunken kiss, Trevor had avoided being alone with her. He frowned. "Don't worry. There's enough time to see the beauty of the island and still make it back before dark," she coaxed. "Okay." She headed up the trail and he followed behind. She opted to go without conversation, letting birdsong and the breeze in the trees do the talking. When they arrived at the waterfall, she stretched her arms above her head and brought them down, breathing in the tropical air. "Okay, you've seen it. Let's go." Trevor turned to retrace their steps. She put a hand on her hip. 5 seconds isn't nearly enough time to appreciate this place. We don't have this back home." "No, we don't," he agreed. "But I want to get down the canyon before dark." "Then go," she huffed. "I'm climbing to the top of the falls. There's a rough trail according to my research." Trevor startled. "You aren't climbing that." His tone brooked no argument. "You aren't my boyfriend or my father," she said, irritation roiling in her belly. "You're my manager, and sometimes my friend. Though lately, I wonder if you care about me at all." She edged her way around the pool, the sound of the waterfall increasing. She peeked behind. Trevor stood there, clenching and unclenching his fists, a sign of indecision. She could guess his thoughts. If he left her and she got hurt, he'd never forgive himself. If he stayed, he might break his promise and kiss her in this idyllic, romantic setting. She was hoping for the latter. Reluctantly, he followed. She reached the base of the falls and climbed the rough trail of rocks. "Be careful," Trevor warned. "Rocks are slippery." "Yes, Mum," she teased. She looked over her shoulder to see Trevor roll his eyes. She grinned. They reached the top, and Aurora stood to take in the view with Trevor beside her. "Was it worth the climb?" he asked, holding a stitch in his side. "Absolutely." She plopped on the ground. "Don't you feel accomplished?" She patted the spot next to her. Trevor frowned. "We should get going." He looked at the sky, which was barely turning colors. "You're such a spoil sport." She rose. "We'll go." Trevor nodded and descended. Aurora took one last look and let disappointment swamp her. All her plans had come to naught. She'd tell Carter to go date Lindsay for real. As she made her way down, she heard Trevor slip, then yell. She looked over her shoulder, and her blood turned cold with horror as Trevor plummeted into the pool at the bottom. She scrambled down as fast as she could, but after 5 heartbeats he hadn't resurfaced. She jumped into the pool, hoping she didn't hit a rock. The cold water shocked her, and she surfaced unharmed. Where was Trevor? She dove and located him. She hauled him to the side of the pool and onto the bank. Oh, Trevor, please be alive. She checked his breathing, and her heart sighed with relief to find he was alive, but unconscious. She checked the rest of him, and blood came away on her fingertips from the back of his head. She cursed and ripped her tank top off. Trevor would get an eyeful when he woke, but it was better than bleeding out or whatever. She sincerely wished she had more first aid training. Aurora wrapped Trevor's head with her top and slid his head into her lap. She applied pressure to the spot. Aurora looked around, knowing she wouldn't find help, but hoping there was someone. Help! She called several times. Only the birds in the trees responded. She closed her eyes. Is this punishment for trying to get Trevor to admit he loves me? She called to the heavens. Nothing. She mulled over the situation. Most hikers and tourists were headed down the canyon to beat the dark. She had no water, no food, and nothing for warmth except Trevor, and he was unconscious. She doubted she could haul him to the car on her own. And what if he had internal injuries? Moving him could make everything worse. But if he did have internal injuries, then he needed medical attention immediately. At the very least, he was concussed. She didn't want to leave him to get help. What would he think if he woke and she wasn't there? Would he be disoriented? She decided to wait. She hoped he woke sooner rather than later. She bit her lower lip. When I wanted to get you all to myself, this wasn't what I had in mind, she said to him. His lids fluttered, but didn't open. Aurora's fingertips traced the lines of his face, admiring the curves and planes she loved. She hesitated a moment before dipping her head and matching her lips to his. Even unconscious, Trevor could make the butterflies in her abdomen go crazy. She reveled in the forbidden kiss she'd stolen, memorizing the moment and the softness of his lips against hers. Trevor's head shifted in her lap, and she pulled back. His eyes opened, but his vision was glazed. Aurora? Yeah? Her shoulders thumped with relief. He was going to be okay. What happened? You fell and hit your head. She stroked his damp hair. Why am I all wet? You fell into the pool. His brow puckered in concentration. I don't remember that. She nodded. I'm pretty sure you have a concussion. We need to get you to the hospital. He started to nod and then winced. My head really hurts. Yeah. She knew she needed to get him to medical treatment, but she didn't want to break the moment. The man she loved was in her arms, and she didn't want to let go. His hand reached up and touched her dripping hair. You're so beautiful, he murmured. Definitely concussed. Tears pricked at her eyes as his hand cupped her cheek. I should have told you every day what you mean to me. His words were low and husky. Tears of joy slid onto her cheeks, mixing with the water droplets. What do I mean to you? She lowered her head. His eyes closed again. Oh, Trevor. Aurora looked up to see the sky turning intense colors. She needed to keep him awake. She roused Trevor. He smiled at her. Hi. Hi. It took several moments before the glazed look in his eyes faded and focus returned. My head is killing me, he said. It's gonna head west before we can get you to the hospital, she said. You fell and hit your head. We need to hike to the car and get down the canyon. Okay, help me up. She hauled him to a sitting position. He slumped into her chest, gripping his head. Ouch. He reached up and felt the fabric. What's this? She gripped him by the shoulders and eased him up so he wasn't stuck in her cleavage. My shirt. I used it to stop the bleeding. At least I hope I did. His eyes grew wide as he took her in. Aurora. She snapped her bra strap. Think of it like a bikini top. He trailed a fingertip across her collarbone and down her shoulder. Aurora's skin sang under his touch, and her heart rate picked up. Silently, she pleaded with him to say the words she longed to hear. She desperately wanted to touch his face and feel his lips on hers, but was afraid to move and break the spell of whatever was happening. She saw the wonder in his eyes, as if he was allowing himself to look at her in a way he hadn't before. His thumb traced her bottom lip, and Aurora decided to go for broke. She leaned in and whispered, Trevor, for the next 5 minutes, you're fired. Then she pressed her lips to his, and fireworks went off in her brain. His arms wrapped around her bare waist and pulled her closer. The butterflies in her stomach broke into a celebratory dance. She let her fingers run through his hair, drawing a moan from his throat, and she knew she could never get enough of Trevor. If they couldn't move forward, then she needed to cut him from her life. But she pushed those thoughts away and lived in the moment of Trevor's lips against hers. The softness, the warmth, the tenderness, and the fervor with which he kissed her. She wanted to let the moment last forever, but time and light were against her. Gently, she eased back and dreaded the look on his face. She knew her heart couldn't take another rejection from him. Aurora, don't say anything. We need to get off this mountain. She pressed back on her heels. Can you stand? I can try. She helped him up, and he leaned heavily on her with one arm slung across her shoulders. They were halfway up the trail when Trevor's knees buckled, most of his weight falling onto Aurora. His eyes were shut tight. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my vision. The ground is waving under my feet. Okay, time to get on my back. What? No, you can't carry me. There's no other option. We have to get to the car. He started to shake his head but stopped, a low growl of pain cutting through the sounds of the tropical background. She repositioned herself in front of him. Get on. I'm too heavy, he protested. Heavy or not, get on. She checked the sky. The sunset colors were in full swing, and dusk was settling around them. Do it. Trevor's weight settled on her back. Aurora, just shut up. Trevor's feet dragged along the ground as she finished hiking to the parking area. Panting, she propped him on the hood of the car. Sweat trailed down her back. Keys, she gasped. Front pocket. Oh, I should have known. They were poking into my kidney the whole time. Sorry, he mumbled. She got the keys and opened the car doors. With some finagling, she got him in the passenger seat and buckled. She reclined the seat and dared to swipe a kiss across his forehead. Wrist. Okay. He reached up and touched her face. Aurora, thanks. Not the word she hoped for. She swallowed her disappointment that tasted like nasty cough medicine. Let's get you to the hospital. Chapter 7. Trevor watched as Aurora finished her encore. The audience roared and applauded, more deafening than the sound system. A massive headache had built along with the performance, a lingering after-effect of the concussion he'd sustained 3 days earlier. He felt terrible for having missed one of her performances while he recovered. Aurora had checked on him often, but always with a strained smile. A sadness hovered about her. He wished he knew what the problem was so he could make it go away. He didn't like her to suffer. Not to mention he had a vague recollection of her firing him followed by a kiss, but he couldn't tell if it was a memory or a dream. He hesitated to ask Aurora about it. If it was a memory, then he needed to quit. If it was a dream, then it might give her false hope or make things awkward. Though their relationship was awkward enough with her dating Carter. The performance ended and the crowd dispersed. Trevor took some headache medicine and went through his routine, making sure all the equipment was packed up and ready for transport. Then he went to find Aurora. He needed to talk to her and settle things once and for all. He got some water at the bar and wandered through the resort, shaking hands and exchanging chit-chat with several people. Where was she? Carly popped up in front of him and looped her arm through his. You've been avoiding me. She pouted, tugging him toward the beach. Yes? Why should you? You're not my manager anymore, so we can get back to dating again. Carly, I don't want to date you. He dug in his heels, halting Carly's progress. Of course you do. Every guy does. And we can skip all the preliminary get-to-know-you stuff. She waved a hand in the air, her red nails flashing in the lantern lights. It's perfect. He unwound her arm from his. No, it's not. There's no us. I learned my lesson. Maybe you need reminding. She launched herself at him, pressing her lips to his with force. He stumbled back and gently but firmly pushed her away. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. You're drunk, and we're done. He turned to head back to the courtyard area when he saw a flash of Aurora's hair whip around the corner of a column. He hoped she hadn't seen Carly kiss him. He cautiously approached. No one was there. He looked around and saw the back of Aurora pasted against another column. He walked up to explain, but stopped cold when he saw Carter kissing her. And then all he saw was red. He jumped forward, ripped Carter off Aurora, and landed a right hook onto Carter's jaw. Carter sprawled on the ground. Hey! He rubbed at his face. How dare you! Trevor lunged for Carter. Aurora grabbed him from behind with surprising strength. Stop it! She knelt beside Carter. Are you okay? She helped Carter into a sitting position. I will be. Trevor rubbed his stinging knuckles. What's the matter with you? Aurora rose, high color in her cheeks and anger emanating from her in waves. Why would you take Carter? Trevor thought she'd never looked as desirable as when she was mad. He's making a fool out of you. She pushed him in the chest. We've already been through this. Who I date is up to me. Besides, you were the one kissing Carly a minute ago. You have no right to lecture me. I have every right. No, you don't. She helped Carter up. We're done here. She shot over her shoulder to Trevor. No, we're not. He took her hand and hugged her around toward himself. Hey, Trevor, Aurora's made it clear you're not welcome. Carter stepped between them, breaking Trevor's contact with Aurora. Trevor wanted to strike him again. Are you going to tell her, or should I? Aurora wedged between them. Tell me what? Why are you talking in riddles and acting like a crazy man? She ran a hand over her braid. You know what? Never mind. I don't care. Tell her, or I will, Trevor growled. Don't push in where you're not wanted. Carter crossed his arms over his chest and gave him a challenging look. Fine. Trevor laser-focused on Aurora. He's cheating on you. He kissed Lindsay earlier this week. Aurora laughed. Wow, you really lost it, Trevor. I think the concussions made you delusional. You should go rest. I saw it. His jaw was clenched so tight he thought it might break. She sauntered to him. And when and where did this supposed kiss happen? At the roasted pig show. He kissed her when you went to the bathroom. She shook her head. You weren't even there. I would have known if you were. I came later, and I was there, and he kissed her. Aurora turned to Carter. Is this true? Carter shrugged. And if it is, we're not exclusive. Trevor's fist shook from trying to hold in his rage. How could you do this to her? She's the best woman in the world, and you're treating her like garbage. He rounded on Aurora. Aren't you going to break up with him or something? Why? She asked. We're not exclusive. She said to Carter, but perhaps you should go. I'll meet you in your room when I'm done here, and we'll have a chat. Carter walked away. Trevor's body trembled from containing his emotions. I don't understand. I would never treat you that way. You deserve better. You deserve... He shut his mouth in time. He mustn't tell her. Everything would fall apart. A long moment passed before Aurora got in his face. How do I deserve? Finish your sentence. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Say it, she whispered. Please. She ran a finger along his jaw. Me, he croaked. But what about your rule? Her hand slid onto his cheeks. I don't know. Kiss me. A tear spilled over her lower lash. He continued to shake, but this time from Aurora's touch. Aurora. Another tear. I can't go on like this any longer. Either kiss me or go. Being with you, but not being with you, is torture. Kiss me. He saw his own pain reflected in her eyes. She felt as he did. How could he deny her what they both wanted? But how could he save both their personal and professional lives by doing what she wanted, what they wanted? She took a deep breath. Trevor, for the next 5 minutes, you're fired. And her lips pressed to his, fierce and hungry. And Trevor was lost to her. Her taste, her touch, her essence. Her fingers were in his hair, caressing his neck, running over his chest and then tangled in the hem of his shirt. Trevor lost track of where his body stopped and hers started, and Trevor knew he could never let her go. When she broke off, their breath came in short bursts. Trevor leaned his forehead against hers. What do we do now? Other couples make it work, she said. Clients and managers get married. We can too. He took a thumb and wiped at her tears. What if everything goes south? It won't. I'm sure that's what others thought too up until they got divorced. She stepped back, but he didn't let go of his grip on her waist. Then, I guess this is goodbye, she said. I wasn't finished. He pulled her back to his chest. But that's a risk I'm willing to take. Both of us getting hurt, I mean. I love you, Aurora. I've wasted too much time. We could have been together already. I won't waste one more minute. He kissed her, pushing his ardor into her lips, giving her all he had. If she chose to walk away, he wanted to know she knew how he felt. Otherwise, regret would be his constant companion. She smiled against his lips. I love you too. Couldn't stop the grin that stole across his face. You should probably break up with Carter then. She laughed, and he loved hearing the sound and watching the joy shine in her eyes. About that, she lowered her lashes. Carter and I aren't dating. It was fake. Fake? He blinked. She bit her lower lip and ran her hands across his shoulders. We faked it so you would say those lovely things just now. She raised her blue eyes. Forgive me? He'd forgive her the moon. I guess I can't be mad since we're here like this. He drowned in her gaze. I should probably apologize for socking him, huh? Yes, she giggled. But later, right now, I want you all to myself. Perhaps we should pick a more romantic spot than this outdoor hall. How about a walk on the beach? I'd like that. She threaded her fingers through his, and they walked onto the sand glittering in the moonlight. He kissed her knuckles. Just one thing. What? No more fake relationships, okay? She nodded. And one more thing, he said. She arched a brow. This is going to be a list. Am I still fired? She laughed. Only when I want to kiss you. He pulled her into his arms. Then I'm going to get fired a lot, starting with now. And he kissed her, secure in the knowledge that she loved him, and he would never let her go. The end. Thank you for listening to Electric Heartstrings by Lisa Swinton. Copyright of the text 2021. Narrated by Lisa Swinton. Copyright of the production 2025. You can learn more about Lisa Swinton at www.lisaswinton.com.